Today, a bill to legislate assisted dying is introduced in the UK House of Lords. Major sabotage ahead of the Paris Olympics opening ceremony, and the US arrests the head of the infamous Sinaloa drug cartel. From TLDR News, this is your daily briefing for Friday the 26th of July, 2024. Back in the 1960s, the UK went through a period of social liberalisation. Under the government of Harold Wilson, the UK legalised homosexuality, made divorce easier, and decriminalised abortion. While history has credited the government with making these changes, all three of these were actually introduced via private members' bills. In Westminster, successful legislation is usually proposed by the government. However, there are mechanisms for backbench MPs or Lords to introduce legislation, known as private members' bills. While usually these fail, on occasion they are successful, with the three examples I mentioned earlier being the most significant. And with that knowledge, today Charlie Falconer, a Labour member of the House of Lords, introduced a private members' bill in the Lords that aims to legalise assisted dying in the UK. Specifically, Falconer's bill would allow terminally ill, mentally competent adults the option of assisted dying, provided they meet strict criteria. Individuals would require sign-off from 2 independent doctors, and would need to self-administer the medication if the request were to be approved. While many are happy with this proposal, some claim that it doesn't go far enough. The bill would only be available to those who are terminally ill, not those with incurable conditions such as multiple sclerosis or locked-in syndrome. Falconer explained that my bill is designed for people who will die in the near future. I don't think the state should be helping people who are not terminally ill to take their own lives. Now, while there is a chance that this bill will be successful, there's also a good chance that it doesn't make it to the House of Commons. But even in this scenario, it's not necessarily all lost for such a bill. In September, there are opportunities for private members' bills to be introduced in the House of Commons too. So the government could, potentially, wait until September and back a bill introduced then instead. This is something that Falconer accepts as a very real possibility, with him saying that this would be a much more certain route than a bill originating in the House of Lords like his is. Either way, it does appear as though we could be on the precipice of assisted dying being on the statute book. The new Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, has spoken in favour of assisted dying previously, something that's given campaigners hope that he will either allow the Lord Falconer bill or a potential future private members bill in the House of Commons to become law. There's more on the way, but remember to subscribe and ring the bell for more daily briefing next week. Plus, if you want to support the channel like Kyle Onion Oakley, then consider joining the new TLDR membership program for just $1.99. Today, the day of the Olympic opening ceremony in Paris, France's high-speed rail network has been targeted by a massive attack, involving several simultaneous malicious acts. According to the rail company SNCF, arson attacks were started overnight to damage facilities, causing disruption for 800,000 passengers. The attack, which reportedly involved acts of sabotage, affected SNCF's Atlantic, Northern and Eastern lines, as well as several Eurostar trains between Paris and London. The immediate impact on the public and Olympic athletes is still being assessed, but the disruption is likely to last until the weekend while repairs are being conducted. Now, it's unclear who's behind the attacks, with the French Transport Minister describing it as an outrageous criminal act, and the Sports Minister describing it as downright appalling. The incident also follows reports of empty hotel rooms and thousands of unsold tickets. However, more than 300,000 people are still expected to line the banks of the River Seine tonight to celebrate the opening ceremony, with more than 45,000 police in attendance. Next up, one of the world's most powerful drug lords, Ismael El Mayo Zambada, leader of Mexico's notorious Sinaloa cartel, has been arrested in Texas by US agents. Zambada, aged 76, has been a leading figure in Mexican organized crime since the 1980s, and founded the Sinaloa cartel alongside Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, who's already serving a sentence in US prison. Zambada was arrested in El Paso, Texas, where US agents also arrested another powerful drug trafficker at the same time, El Chapo's son, Joaquin Guzman Lopez. According to media reports, Guzman Lopez, who surrendered himself to US authorities, had turned on Zambada and tricked him into entering the United States because he blamed Zambada for the capture of his father. Zambada was reportedly lured onto a private plane under false pretenses, thinking that he was going to inspect airfields in Mexico, but the plane actually flew north and landed in El Paso, Texas. Both Zambada and Guzman Lopez face multiple charges in the US, including for heading the cartel's criminal operations, including its deadly fentanyl manufacturing and trafficking networks, according to US Attorney General Merrick Garland. The US's Homeland Security Secretary said that the Sinaloa cartel had pioneered the manufacture of fentanyl and has for years trafficked it into our country, killing hundreds of thousands of Americans and devastating countless communities. Sticking with the US, Vice President Kamala Harris, the presumptive Democratic nominee for president, met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Washington, D.C. on Thursday, in what Harris described as a frank and constructive conversation. Following the private meeting, Harris made remarks that were closely watched to see how much, if at all, she would diverge from President Joe Biden's position. Now, Harris reiterated that Israel had the right to defend itself and condemned Hamas's October 7th attack, but added that how Israel defends itself matters. She said, "We cannot look away in the face of these tragedies in Gaza. We cannot allow ourselves to become numb to the suffering, and I will not be silent." Adding that she expressed her serious concerns about the scale of the human suffering in Gaza to Netanyahu, including the, quote, death of far too many innocent civilians. She also called for a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, a deal to bring back the remaining hostages from the Gaza Strip, and the establishment of a Palestinian state as part of a two-state solution. While the substance of her remarks didn't really diverge from previous comments by Joe Biden, Harris's words have been noted for being relatively forceful, sharp, and serious in tone. As a presumptive nominee for her party, Harris's foreign policy, as well as domestic policies, are much more under scrutiny than they were previously, as she has to balance serving as Joe Biden's vice president and setting out her own agenda. Our final uplifting story for the week is one about a man in India whose life has been changed after finding a 19.22 carat diamond worth almost $100,000. 40-year-old Raju Gond, who works a number of jobs on farms and in mines, discovered the stone while digging in a 64 square meter plot of government land with his brother. He said that he immediately knew the stone he found was a diamond and rushed to a local diamond office to have it valued, where it was given a $95,500 price tag. For context, the Indian government leases shallow mines to families who want to look for gemstones, under the supervision of local officials, and takes an 11.5% royalty, plus a small tax, for any discovery. After the value of the local diamond office inventory passes $360,000, an auction for Gond's discovery will be held, and he'll receive a payout. Speaking about his intentions to use the money, Gond said, "The first thing I'll do is pay back debt. Then we'll invest in all children getting educated, building homes, buying land, and maybe a tractor too." And he's already been back to that shallow mine too, determined to find even more diamonds.
If you want to learn more, then check out our physical magazine, Too Long. We've been working on this for a while now, but it's about to be printed and shipped. So here's everything you need to know. Too Long is 60 pages of our very best journalism, diving deeper into issues than we can on YouTube. As you can see from the front cover, this issue is focused on the UK general election, explaining what Labour want to do with their new huge majority, what each of the other parties are going to do next, and much more. It's more than just the UK though, with major stories from across Europe and the world, including the US election, the countries who could join the EU, the war in Gaza, and the European elections. We're really proud of how this product has turned out, and we think it's some of our best writing yet, able to dive into topics in a way that the algorithm just wouldn't allow. It's also a great way to support the channel, with the cost of production only increasing as we expand and advertising markets getting less stable. Your support helps us improve the business, improve our journalism, and helps us make more free YouTube content for everyone. If you're interested, you can go to toolong.news to buy a copy. You can also subscribe to Too Long, which gets you 25% off the price and a copy sent straight to you every 4 months. Subscribing really helps us turn this into a reliable revenue stream, which is super helpful when it comes to growing our business. Plus, if physical isn't your thing, then there's also digital versions. Anyway, sales close soon, so head to toolong.news to order now. And make sure to use code FINALORDERS to get an extra £2 off your purchase. Thanks for watching and for supporting TLDR.